Good morning. Um, I wanted to include a tour of the frame fixture in the virtual environment for all the stuff that's changed since I actually produced the fixture. Here we have Wendy's new road bike. Look at that yoke. I'm really stoked on the yoke. I'm going to just sidebar this here, and this yoke is really sick. I'm excited for it. Oh, there we go. Got a couple cutouts there so we can do a double or a single. But that's with a 43 millimeter tire with mud clearance or side clearance and full gearing and everything like that. Road width, everything. Yeah, it's really crazy. Okay, anyway, I wanted to show you a couple things that's probably easier in the model. Let's go to the tower, the crank shell tower. We'll open up that subassembly. It's going to take a second to wind up. All right, there we go. So this guy's really cool. Let's do a split view. Perfectly fine. Let's do it the other axis. Oh, there we go. Whoa, I lost my cursor. There we go. Okay. It's taking a second. I mentioned this in another in my writing there. So this is really cool. Now, I probably prefer this not be aluminum, but it's a big chunk and it was probably easy enough to machine. But the shaft is a 1-inch precision. It's semi-precision. It's good enough. But, I didn't kill myself with the precision on that. It's suitable for the use that's intended here. But what you see here is going through the table, we have that shoulder bolt. It's a nice long one, and it goes into a 5/8 precision board socket into the bottom of that and threads with the 1/2-inch 13. We got our venting there. There's also, there we go. There are two, that's right, I should have split it along this. There's 2 set screws that bind against some flats there to hold it against this bore, even though that bore is a very close fit. But then at the bottom, we're using this bore and tension going downward, but we're filling in all this area with shoulder bolt. So it's really strong. And of course, at the bottom, I relieve. Let's get the full view there. I relieve the center section, and then we have our set screws there, and we can kind of change that transparency. So that's really awesome. I had to do these cool little details on the sides to make clearance to access those, because going through, I don't know, this is cool. Anyway, these are optional details, these side cutouts. Should I need more space on the table, let's go back to a table view here. That's bare fixture, no table. Oh, I should have done the table, blah, blah, blah. Let's see if it pulls up. Oh, it's bare fixture table. So yeah, I screwed that up. Here we go, bare fixture table. Let it pull up. There we go. So those optional details I haven't added yet. We're going to see what happens in the future. But that's if we need to get pin access right up close to it, because this is a fairly large diameter. For full suspension, this is one of the founding principles of this fixture is so that you're able to do all the fancy stuff with full suspension. And that means getting right up close to the bottom bracket shell with some pivots or details or anything like that. So there might be a need to even cut a flat there or whatever, but there's some room. For now, I kind of bogarted it a little bit. we can go into, let's go to one of these assemblies here. I think this one will probably show what we want, a beam assembly. Here we go. Let's open that up. Okay, so this mechanism here, if you see, that pivots around, and that gives us the ability to really easily pick a spot on the table and just bolt up without any fuss. And of course, this can be the straight edge there can be swapped out for any of the Build Pro stuff, and it works pretty good. But if we look here, we're going to do a cutaway again, and let me go into this assembly. There we go. We'll do the cutaway, and I'm just going to drag it down right to there. That's probably easiest. Okay. There was probably a better way to do that, but we're going to get what we need here. This took a while, and I had to just kind of suck it up because I didn't want to go through so much. So these are pinned in there because this is just a number 8 holding that in there. But that's so that we're not screwing up our rail potential down here. We can still have fairly good locating. I have it drawn with roll pins, even though in the actual assembly I used dowel pins were fine. But then we have another one of those cool countersunk counterboard pin things. And you can see I used this little shoulder screw. I didn't even have to modify the pin. The pin was perfectly usable as it exists in other parts of the fixture. And I stack up some Belleville washers, and I guess this needs to be remated. I was messing with this just at the last minute. Anyway, but you can see what's going on, and the spring, there's a lot of stuff here, both on this pin and this bore, holding everything concentric and very play-free. You can actually shim in there and everything to really take it out. And then it just goes into this socket, and it pulls that mechanism all together, and the total stack provides support here, both pushing down, obviously, that's a no-brainer, but pulling up, it has to work against the spring force of all these washers, which, I mean, you could probably argue that they're, in a massive distortion case, it's going to move that, but I don't think that's going to happen. And it's all, how's this? We'll see. But for right now, it provides a huge level of convenience there. Then, of course, we've got that plate going in under the table. These split views are really why I wanted to go here. You can exit this screen now. Oh, wait, was there anything else up here? Not really. I have all these scales drawn in. This one, because it's the head tube beam, the measurement starts at the pivot. And these are the plates that I had made. The plates are really, for such a simple little thing, they really clean up the looks and functionality so that you can't override the carts. Oops, let's drag this window in. Discard all. Gosh, we're really having fun here. This video is going to run long just because I'm sitting here waiting for my processor, which that's one of my lists to upgrade, is when I get a new laptop. It's going to have a faster processor and killer video. Killer video camera. When we get up here, let's pull up this one. This is the slider block assembly. Let's do cutaways. Yay! Back in the day, you couldn't do this stuff. You had to actually cut it away. I've done a few of those in my career as a machinist. There we go. But now I get to do it with the click of a button. And we can explain this cart. I've got this drawn in. Oh, we got some, oops. These are some planes. I need to hide those. I've got this drawn with this long T-nut. I'm just using short ones right now. The short ones are actually working all right. I think maybe I was overthinking it a bit with the long T-nuts. I have the capacity to do that because it's just a simple piece of T-nut stock from 8020 that I can cut those out of. Maybe I'll do that in the future, but for right now it's working fine. I thought I needed a stack of 3 of these washers here to make this handle work out, but one thing I definitely warn people about, for especially for these turn handles, the models that you get aren't a very good representation of what is real, and I had to change my model to match the reality of the situation, and that actually opened up more of what I wanted to do in the first place versus what I thought. So just definitely a word of caution for those handles. Measure actual, okay? But you can see I've got my Delrin guide here, right? And that's held in with a couple of 832s. And we've got, in this case, I'm not connecting to a T-nut in here. I'm connecting to the back of there with the nut, with that 90-degree bracket. And then we have this clearance here. Now I'm playing with a couple of these. I think I cut the clearance a little tight. I'm not sure yet. I opened them up a little bit on some I was setting up. I'm playing with the seat tube supports and trying to figure out how to improve what I have going there and or what's going wrong. But I'm trying to get this thing rolled out, and then I can deal with the fussy stuff later. But I opened it up. On everything else, these work really good. What else is here that's worth note? Oh, yeah, well, duh. The pin assembly. The cone, I should say. So this is the insides of that. We can look at the views. We've got this plumbing taken care of. You know, to remove the cone, you do have to pull the plumbing, but it's just a pass-through hose, so it's like a no-brainer. I'm wondering if this will melt. Depends on how hot this gets. I might end up having to use a copper section in here. I'm going to pass that bridge when I get to it. Sorry, yeah, copper or anything else. Stainless. It could be even stainless steel tube. For right now, it's the standard tubing. But you can see it's simple. It's dead simple. And the reason why I have such an extension here in that bore is so that you can actually use the next couple size up shoulder screws, and that would increase the interface here. Like if you're mounting it to the table or in another situation where you had much more side load or something like that, you could even increase that interface. The problem with that is the way standard counter shoulder bolts are, this thread sticks up a significant amount. And just to keep things kind of stock fastener, I did it this way, and that way nothing has to be cut down over here for unsightly threads sticking out. I'm not a fan of threads sticking out. So if you did want to use a longer shoulder bolt, you could. You just cut down the threads if you wanted to be have some good housekeeping there. Okay, so that's sort of like future planning or options planning in there, so that, you know, I'm not using it now, but maybe in the future I'll need it. All the little things we do. I gotta do a don't save on that next warning screen. Oh, it didn't do me one. So while the crank axis tower is new from the last videos that I did, this tower here, the axle tower, let's open that up. We might as well include it in this video. So Let's change the transparency there. Oh, no, we're not going to change the transparency because this thing is just covered with detail. Let's hide that. Okay, so here you can see we've got that tension rod that I want. If I were to do this again, I would go to a larger tension rod. This is quarter 20, I think. I would go up to a 5/16 or maybe even a 3/8. It depends on how much clearance I can produce on this cap. Let's see there. This might be tougher to see. Yeah, see, I have a bit of room. It might not make it to 3/8. I could go with a thicker cap, but there's no reason to have such a big cap. But you can see that these pins keep the cap aligned and in place, very precise and everything like that. So I'm freeing up the 4 holes that go through the 80/20, and that's to reach down to these set screws. Now, kinematically correct would be to use 3 set screws, not 4, but the profile supports 4. We don't have 3, so we're kind of screwed there, but the ability is better than the perfection, right? So I'm totally down. We have a pair of Delrin guides here, which is kinematically incorrect to have 2 there. I have 2. I'm not looking for perfection. I'd rather rigidity and lack of jiggle right now. I initially set the fixture up with just one of these, and I actually added a second one just because I had it on hand, and what the hell. And the system works fine with 2 in there because it's precise enough, or there's enough slop enough, I guess you could say, to allow that. So we're going to close this. Oh, wait, cancel. So this, we'll talk about the tension rod. Tension rod's fun. So it threads into the space, and then it has a locking shouldered nut clamping against that. So that's very rigidly placed. And then we have another of those here to a coupling nut, nice long one, and you can see there that we are pretty well engaged on both ends, and that provides us the ability to just thread into there. Now, it doesn't get too wonky. It's pretty easy to do. So everything pretty much worked. These additional holes that aren't going down to the set screws, these ones, let's bring this back. So these are another 5/8 bored holes. I didn't know what I might be able to put on the top there or something like that. So I added that as a top feature because I figured you've got this perfectly good pillar. Like, what do you want to mount to the top of the pillar? Even if it's a lamp, or a weld accessory thing like a torch holder or something like that. It's a place to mount. And just like I said, and I haven't drawn it in here, I initially drew the tower with these 3 5/8 bored holes on the opposite side, so I could mount Build Pro stuff to it, like these rail plates or anything like that. I decided not to add that feature yet. Again, like I said, I'm taking my time producing this and in a way savoring it and letting all the stuff that I can percolate through the system. But I have it in the model so that should something come up, I've already got a plan. It's one of the best ways to approach this kind of stuff. Plan the maximum, but you don't necessarily have to produce the maximum right then. But if you want to add it later, it's already in the mix. That's a good approach. These pin assemblies are fun. I didn't have the set screws at the time of filming and everything like that go in here. But, these just thread in, and just to make life easy, it's just a set screw screwed in there. You bottom it or lock it in place. A lot of engagement because we've got a thinner wall here. A lot of threaded engagement there, and then a through hole there so that one of the Allen wrenches on table can snug it down. It's nice and easy, and it's a precise fit into the hole so that now I can measure anywhere on the table, Oh, I hope it doesn't keep that hidden. Oh, it did. So we're hidden there. I'll fix that later. So you can see this is another example of that go back later. I talked in the other video about trying to figure out the scale system. I have these little squares like on Amazon. They're like $6 or something like that. And I trim them so they fit right underneath the plates and they don't cause interference. And I'm thinking of having a scribe line or a marked line there, essentially marking an offset from the pivot pin row here. So in a way, if you were here on the seat tube, you'd take this measurement here, which is like 200 or is it 124? Oh, it's 239 millimeters or something like that, and then subtract 40 from that, and then you'd have like 199, something like that. For here, it's a subtraction, and up here, it's an addition, but it's a constant for both of them. That's one of the options that I'm working on for that, and it's kind of neat, but it's like, I don't know. The pin to pin measure, so we're serving double duty over here. Let's bring that back. The most precise measurement that I'm going to get is measuring between these two pins. Of course, this cosine pin is just a translation, and then this pin, the measurement pin, is off the board, so you take the number of pins times 2 inches, the diameter of these two pins added together divided by 2, and then the gap between them, and then that is a very, very precise way of getting to where this is laterally. Again, because these plates are in a fixed position in our calculator. Let's go to our calculator. There we go. So this is the calculator. Let's maximize this a little bit. Yeah, there we go. If you notice here, the frame center line is 220 millimeters. That's not used in any of the calculations here, but I think it's a useful thing to know. The head to pivot from the BBY. So it says 711.2. And what is that? That's, we can see on our table that we're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 inches from the crank axis. And that's pretty darn precise, so we enter that into the calculator. I work in metric here, but I think if you look at, oh, there we go, 14 times 2 times 25.4 is 711.2. So it's really pretty basic math there. And the cosine radius, so the reason for this complex math for what appears to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 14-inch cosine radius is because there might be a time, this is, this is the flexibility of this. There might be a time where you have a near vertical head tube. Well, if you wanted a near vertical head tube, this cosine pin will be in the way, right? Well, you can shift the cosine pin over to this side and do the angular measure from over here, and that's where we have this shift angle calculation right there, and that's some information right here. Right now it's on plane, but I just add that to it, and that would change the angle some, and then the calculation could proceed. So yeah, it's like we got Legos. This is Frame Builder's Lego set, an erector set for cool kids. So we can move that over there. We can move that cosine pin anywhere on this. But of course, the design change from last time, if you notice, all these placements on this plate are freed up except for the ones that are right on this row and the cosine and the pivot pin. You can use those for whatever you want. You can move the cosine pin around. You could move the pivot pin around, I guess, if you wanted to. Pretty simple stuff there. And what else are we looking at? Let's do this guy, because we're going to talk about kinematic constraints. Okay, so here's our rail here. In actuality, so this is drawn. Oh, I took them out. So it's drawn with long T-slot nuts again. I'm using singular ones. They seem to be working fine so far. We'll see in time. But these pins are actually what locate it. So those are really precise and solid in terms of the consistency of the mount. Now they bind their way in. That's not perfectly kinematically constrained, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, sometimes you have to be expedient. But over here we are. I'll change the transparency. Let's see if that works. Okay, so in this case, we used the V slot. That's the way to do it. We don't use round. Lesson learned. Use a V slot there, which is nice. And this setup here, if you notice, it's got a pin in there so that when you loosen this up, it just slides back out of the way, but doesn't go wonky or anything like that. It's really quick and easy to use, and there's a good amount of downforce that's provided by just this handle nut, that kind of thing. So let's bring everything back before we close it out. And do we want to go to the package? Is there anything over here? So these are simply, we have our driving parameters for a bike. These are all the important numbers for setting a frame fixture. These sets of driving parameters, and it does all the calculations along with the frame fixture information here. And then we get this set of settings. Simple enough. Same thing. That was the M2 F2. This is the Millennium Falcon. Different settings, obviously. We have like an 855 millimeter front center, you know, suspension fork. This was just added, this fork slider angle from steer. Again, we just changed to a new driving parameter that the gravel forks have. So the new gravel suspension forks have an angular change for the sliders of the suspension, and we just build that in. My bikes don't use it yet. I don't think I have any plans to, but I wanted to ensure my calculations were up to date there. And I think that's it for what we wanted to do in 3D, but I think these images also give people a better view of it. I had initially made these, that's why you saw in the video these simple clamps that can go on these in general. But I had the time to get these Build Pro pivoty things done. Oh, they feel so cool when they work. It's like a magical setup. I want to improve that, but it works great for now. So let's go to the documentation package. Okay, so let's go page by page. So we got a perspective view. We have a layout of everything in 2D. Let me move this out of the way. Adobe hates me. We have elevation view here. So it's 220. It's a side view. These are kind of cluttered looking. Here's without the thing. You can see fundamental parts of the system, two calculations, trigonometry everybody should know and be able to use well. This is the head tube assembly broken out. We see the underside here with those simple plates. This is the seat tube subassembly, the rear axle subassembly with all the various parts there. This is the axle tower. We can see that section view with these pins and everything like that. But we have a few options here. 220 is right in the middle. We can go to 230 or 240 on this. I didn't want to. This is an expensive piece, and a tough one to find. So I wanted to make sure if I decide to go up 20 millimeters in height, because I can. The fixture is so rigid, I think I can get away with a 240 or so. And we'll see how it goes. 220 might be fine. But we're kind of getting there in terms of height from the table. That's easy and nice, but still fixturable. There's costs on the fixturing side as you raise it. So if you're doing suspension pivots, there might be additional costs there. Section view of all that plumbing stuff. I have an insert in here from the 1/2 inch, and that's a nice small hole going through that whole thing. But look at how rigid that is. It's so good. Here's the slide that slides the plates. You can see that I've got the Delrin key in there that's held in place and some nuggets here, and it just slides right along. It makes for, and then this connects the plate to it. These are the handles. A really cool system there. Just some views of that pillar. If you notice the two configurations, so let's draw a line here. There's one configuration here where that angle bracket, well, the T-slot section is pushed forward on the carriage, and here the T-slot section is pushed backward on the carriage. There was a certain amount of space that had to be consumed for this type of system, but I realized that you could configure it in two different ways in the same spatial relationship. And that's because I have those 85 millimeter head tubes that are so small. You got to get these things close sometimes, and you might want to reconfigure for that. So there's some flexibility built into there already. Here's the fork fixture that I've designed. I show in the pictures this fork plate for the fork axle that works all on here. And then there's these parts here that I have to make, as well as this. I already have extras of these for holding the steerer. This is just an idea, and when you're making stuff, you can throw it into the order. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it this way or not, but I've got some of the parts already. Build Pro table, again, I wish this was a little bit wider this way and this way, but that's what we have. Here's a Siegmund. The Siegmunds work out a little bit better in terms of frame building, and they're a much nicer table, but they don't have the crisp counterbore the same way that Build Pro does. I wish Siegmund did have that, because otherwise I think their tables are amazing. And here's, of course, the drawing of the torsion box made of MDF. And it occurred to me recently, you could also, if you had a big enough piece of tabletop oak or something like that. Now, it's not a precision flat surface, but it'll be a rigid surface. And if you do some 5/8 holes, there's a way to make that stuff happen. So I think there's more options in the cheapo space. And you don't need all the holes. I mean, again, most of my setups are just a singular set. This just makes it so you have tons of options. Those sliding plates come from one plate. This is the stock Build Pro, this part number. And then I just cut it into 3 pieces, gets me my plates. Boom. This isn't drawn well. That should be shifted over here. But 3 come out of there, no problem. Now we get into the individual part prints. There's some different tolerances depending on what's mounting there. Clamps don't have to be very precise, but translation pinholes from plate to plate do, so we tighten that stuff up. We have our drawing here. There's some various things that are close, like the 625 and the 1 inch. Our pillar here, we got a 1/2 inch here, subtracting there. I'm hoping it's enough with the aluminum. I'm hoping I can get this anodized before I beat it up too much. That will help it a bunch. These are fine threads, 3/8 24 for all of them. Since, it's one part, it's clamping. For the adjustment stuff, you want to use fine threads. So I have that there. Here's the tapered 20 degree for that release mechanism we talked about already with Cyberdyne. And this was with the gear puller removal. Those are those little clamp things. Here's the drawing for the thing there. Now here I've got those V grooves here. Remember, I've got it drawn with 4 millimeters of thing. That means there's 2 millimeters in either direction from where that stops. So you don't have to cut a giant V groove. You just need the V groove where you need it. But again, I'm working on this. But here's the regular tube towers. Those are working well. The carts, a lot of stuff going on with these, and the bottom side for everything else. Various rails. And this was added for Colin Ray. He wants to work with an optical breadboard, and I realized I could easily make these rails mount to optical breadboard, which is cool. It's like, that's nice to bring back into this whole setup. There's some things like the crankshell tower that would have to be mounted differently than I show it here, but that's not out of this world. The little Delrin nuts for the glide thing. I'm maximizing space of the backside. There's some cool stuff going on there. Just Delrin things, the end plates, the pins. These pins. I mean, a lot of the fixture functions on these pins. They're easy to make in mass, and they're loose tolerances in general, other than the diameter. There it is. That diameter needs to be tight. Boom. But that's fairly easy on a lathe. And this is how the system functions. And there's 3 different size pins. But you can make them long and just cut them to length for each one, which is probably what I'm going to do later on if I ever do this again. Get long ones done and then just trim them off in my lathe. I made a tool for working on that in a very particular way. Bunch of details here. You can show our definition of that V groove. I don't know if it's according to Hoyle or not, but I'd like to hear more about how to define that V groove in a better way than I have it shown. Oops, that didn't show up there. This is for the fork again, 1375 there. Boom, boom. The bottom plate. Okay, this is all the various cones. Here we have the 52 IS52, ZS44, IS41, 31. This is a dedicated or it's targeted at 31.6. Here's EC34, not the best one to use, but then these are some more generic. This will do an IS41.ZS thing. This will do all of it. This is the cosine pin. Various descriptions of that system. It's the measurement pin and the rails, and we have a blank page. All right, I'm hoping that helps people to understand what's going on here. So when I was thinking of how to make this and everything like that, these rails actually could just continue across the whole page, the whole plate. There's no reason for them to be separated. Now, there might be times where you lower the seat tube ones and raise the head tube ones, and it's a little bit more flexible currently. You can do lots of things. And if you notice, I have measurement rails here so that when you can flip it over in a different position and it makes up for this gap and everything like that. So this, as it exists, you can do any setup. It's just you flip the rails or move the rails or whatever you want, or just use the measurement pin. But I'm working on a beat manual mill. It's got a DRO, which is nice, and I true it up as best I can. tram it in there. And I wasn't thinking I was going to do a, 4 foot, pin to pin with the accuracy of at the level of the table. Remember, these tables are cut in Germany at one time on a big fancy machine, and that layout is precise. It's damn good, and that's why I'm building around it. But I'm not able to do that in my shop. Maybe if one of my buddies that has a big CNC machine can do it with a pick on the part so that it's really true and everything like that, I'll have that done. But for now, I've got this. It's like, it's fine. I could do it with a manual mill. It was just within the range of my machine to be able to do these center to centers that you see here. At the confidence, there's probably a trick I could figure out for getting that really right. But for now, I didn't bother. There we go. Samantha is live. I'm going to be using it the next few weeks to build the new road bike, which I'm hoping is going to be a stunner. Have all this stuff. Obviously, this post is going to be up for made, and hopefully that bike will be up for made too. Got to show your stuff at the bike show, even though it's going to be on people's phones. Okay. Thanks for watching this long video. Okay. Bye.